Okay. Welcome to the Town Board Workshop, Thursday, June 6th. Please rise and salute the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Emergency exits are to my right, behind the screen, and also the door you came in. Roll, please.
Councilwoman Samoji? Here. Councilman Morris?
Here.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Here.
Councilman Doyle? Here. And Supervisor Perotti?
Here. We're going to do our meeting in a little different order than is in the
See you at 8.
agenda due to some technical difficulties. So under other matters, we have a proposal from Crawford and Associates for grant writing services. The DEC, as part of the consolidated funding application from the state, has a salt shed grant that will, that pays for 50% funding up to $500,000. There's also a program there called the Green Innovation Grant Program, which is a program administered by the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, EFC, that will provide funding for 7 specific infrastructure techniques. I asked for a proposal because both of these grants require information we would need from an engineer. Now we're not locked into doing it all. Part of the fee for services is a feasibility study regarding for the highway garage property. That was $5,000. The application for the salt shed, which is $3,000, and the other application for green infrastructure. Now we can decide whether to do 1, 2, or all of these. But this was an opportunity, and the consolidated funding application is due the end of July. So if we want to take advantage of these grants, I asked for a proposal from Crawford and Associates, who did the phase 1 review of the property already, so they are well familiar with it. Did you want to take the scene? Donna Verna is here to answer any questions you may have about the proposal and applying for the grants and the information about the grants themselves. They've had a lot of experience applying for these types of grants for municipalities.
One quick question. It says in the last page, it says the cost for the feasibility study can be reimbursable under the grant program.
Right.
Is that applies to both grant programs?
No, that applies to the Green Innovation Grant Program.
Okay.
That's the only program that requires the feasibility study. So if you're successful in being awarded the grant, that cost could be reimbursed.
One of the problems is that there are very few grants out there for specifically building a highway garage.
Right.
But this is one that, that could be used.
Right.
Since we have to consider stormwater when we're building it and how we build it.
Right. The thing with green infrastructure is that it doesn't take care of all the stormwater, but it takes care of some. So, there's cost for building it, but then there's also reduced costs in dealing with the stormwater on the other end. And the Green Innovation Grant Program is really a great opportunity to have it funded, up to 90% by the state.
So they would do things that we're required to do anyway? Or
You're
do
not-
you have to go above and beyond?
You're not required to use green infrastructure to treat stormwater, but you are required to treat stormwater. Whether it's detention with some sort of filtering. Green infrastructure is more natural techniques.
Classic, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a better way of doing it, and in this case, it can be funded. You know, you still may, you know, likely end up with a stormwater pond, but it won't be as large.
And it's just stormwater retention that you think that this particular project would be eligible, or are there, I'm surprised there isn't solar or some, you know, energy efficiencies or insulation, you know, extra
Well,
energy efficiency?
stormwater retention actually isn't a green infrastructure technique, so that's not covered. That's something that you would have to do anyway. And that, you know, green infrastructure will reduce the size of any sort of retention that you would have to build to deal with the stormwater. As far as other green things like solar panels or things like that, they're not covered under this program. This program is specific to stormwater.
I see.
You know, there may be other, I did check under the, this round of CFA, and there really isn't any, you know, I thought, you know, solar on your roof or something would be a good idea. There isn't necessarily a specific program that fits under right now, which isn't to say that there aren't incentives through NYSERDA for including that in the project when you get to that point.
I see.
Just separate from the
Yes,
CFA
separate from
process.
this particular deadline, this is
Right.
what's available with this
Correct,
round. Okay.
correct, correct.
And so what kind of grant funding, I mean, in other words, what would be the typical cost of this kind of thing? Or do you have to go into a lot more studies in order to understand what we're actually going to be proposing?
Yeah, we'd have to, and that's the purpose of the feasibility study. So I would envision that we would first sit down with, I would assume your highway superintendent, who probably has looked at the site and probably has an idea of how she wants things laid out, you know, and kind of put that on a base map. And that will give us areas that would be impervious, you know, where the buildings would be located, where asphalt would be, and from that we calculate stormwater volumes, and that's used as a basis for sizing green infrastructure. So from that we would, you know, get an idea of where things would be located. So as I say in the proposal, potential techniques that may be used on that site could be bioretention, possibly permeable pavement, though we'd have to be careful with that because of the salt and sand that would be at the site. You know, I think possibly a great opportunity for stormwater recirculation. Possibly stormwater is collected in a cistern, can be used to wash the trucks down, go back into the cistern and kind of, so you're not drawing more water out of the aquifer. I think those are the two.
Rain barrels, too.
Oh, rain garden,
garden.
which specifically would, I believe, have to be connected to downspouts from the roof, the roof drains of the buildings. You know, I think because you know it's a empty slate in a way, we can kind of design whatever. You know, other techniques that I actually didn't include in here, you know, that are eligible would be green roofs. I'm not sure that's practical for the salt shed, potentially for the highway garage, you know, I don't know at this point. I kind of think you're probably not far enough along with the highway garage building to include that right now, but potentially next year if that's something you wanted to pursue. And the other thing with your site is that the soils are just perfect for green infrastructure because they're permeable, but they have enough organic content to provide treatment.
So the green infrastructure grant submission due date is July 26th?
Yes, that's the due date for all funding, all grant applications under the consolidated funding application.
Okay, so
Both programs.
both programs
Yeah.
have the same due date, okay.
Yeah.
And your feasibility study would take roughly how long?
We would have to get it done by then. It would take, I don't know, 3 to 4 weeks. Parts, you know, we'd have to schedule it with, you know, your highway department to get the test pits done. But I'm confident we can get it done in time.
Do you bill at the completion of the services?
In this case, you know, we could.
Yeah. Because
Yeah, I mean-
it says that the payment is due upon receipt of the invoice, but I would expect that the work would be complete by that time.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, generally more relevant to private clients. We understand.
Okay.
Okay, do you
Just
want to
how
talk
these
about
go
the
through cycle.
salt shed a little bit? The salt
Yes,
shed.
the salt shed program, that's under the Water Quality Improvement Program. So not just anybody could apply and be eligible for that funding. What makes Amenia eligible is that where the current salt shed is located, it's in proximity to a priority water body that's been identified by the state, and it's on this list, potentially having water quality problems. The actual report doesn't identify any right now, but that puts it in the eligible category, as well as the fact that it's over a principal aquifer. That also, the state's, under this program, Water Quality Improvement wants to preserve and clean up any water, groundwater, surface water sources that are out there. So they've identified salt sheds as sources of contamination for water supplies. I don't believe that your existing salt pile is uncovered. If it were, you'd get more points, but
It is uncovered.
It is
There
uncovered.
a salt
We-
storage, but where they mix their piles, the giant pile is out in the...
Out in the open.
So yes, we get plenty of points. We have
We
plenty
get-
of reasons why we need a salt shed. There's
I think
no
we could get all the points.
yeah.
issues that are located at that site. The tiny concern I have, and maybe it's not relevant, but when I came into office in 2004, Arlene Giuliano had gotten this particular grant from the New York State DEC to build a salt shed. At the time, they had estimated it would cost $275,000, which wasn't enough anyway, but there were reasons we didn't have a parcel, and that's been over and over documented. For some reason, at some point, I was involved in trying to negotiate with New York State DEC for constant extensions of the deadline while we searched for more properties, but it's well documented. That is the only reason why we didn't follow through. We did lots of test pits. We looked at different properties. We ended up having to repay back all of the funds that they had.
Well, whatever we had used of.
In order to, at the end of the day, we were unable to fulfill the grant application. So that's the only worry I would have from DEC, is that they have a really bad taste. But there's no doubt that DEC wanted us and did everything they could, because that location is
Yeah.
so improper
Yeah,
for salt
yeah.
shed.
So you have paid back the grant?
Yes,
Because
years
I-
ago.
Okay, because
Well,
there is
we
a
did
question.
spend on test pits and engineering. It wasn't 75,000. It was
right.
probably
Right,
20,000, but
Right.
at the most. But we did have to pay that.
because I believe there's a question on the application as to whether or not you have any open.
No, it's
been
not
closed.
open
Okay, so if it's been closed, then it shouldn't be a problem.
for many years. Okay, does anybody else have any other questions?
Only other thought I had, and maybe you can respond to it, but just from a practical point of view, the timing of this grant and the phase that we're at with the highway garage seems to be a little bit out of sync. In other words, if I were a homeowner and I was going to, now I had a property to build on, and I'm just saying about the green infrastructure grant. If I had a property to build on and I hadn't yet designed my house, now we're designing the house with a deadline of 2 months, and we want to get this grant to do the green infrastructure, a very tiny bit of it. So correct me if I'm wrong, if we've done more planning and we had a layout and we were sure. I would hate to design a structure around a potential,
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be
5%
that
cost
locked
would
in.
be-
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that locked in. I mean, it's a feasibility study, so we do have to come up with conceptual designs. But
have to do
based on that, yeah, I mean, a conceptual design can be based on just, if I think you know that you want 6 bays in your highway garage.
Yeah, we have a conceptual
Yeah,
design. We've had it for
yeah.
years. We just never had the land.
So that gives us a rough footprint. It doesn't have to be, a foot here or there, or, isn't going to make that much of a difference. You
And
know,
we
with
wouldn't-
that, you'd probably want to start looking at your site planning anyway. That would be one of the first steps. So that's kind of what we'd be doing with a conceptual site layout.
It's a first step.
Yeah.
And the funds wouldn't be available to next year
Till next year
anyway,
anyway,
because
right.
the awards don't get announced to December, I
December,
think.
right. And the Green Innovation Grant Program, I've seen projects on the list as small as like 50,000 up to over $1 million. So it's very broad. There's not, they kind of recognize that green infrastructure can be costly, and the cost can vary. But it seems very flexible. The other project that we're working under this program on, we put in the application for, I think it was 425,000, which seemed like a lot. They funded 375. If that's not going to be enough using the village crews, we're going to just cut out a piece of it. You know, and so it's flexible in that way that whatever money they give you, you know, if as you're going through the design process or whatever, it doesn't look like it's enough, you can trim back a little bit.
So I don't know if you realize it, but we did a little green infrastructure project back behind the town hall. So water coming off of the roof.
We have a
going
rain
across
garden.
Yeah, very
the
nice.
Pavement is supposed to go into the rain garden. So there's a maintenance factor that I think the town needs to be aware of.
Right.
In making these things continue to work.
Right.
And you've done lots of these grant applications. It sounds like you've done a couple of successful ones in the CFA grants.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have some of the towns that you've done, or?
Ravenna, Tivoli, Catskill, Rhinebeck. I think that's all that's coming to me at the moment.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is Hudson River Housing set?
That's perfect timing. Thank you for your patience and help. I do also have the presentation as a handout, so I just want to pass those along to folks. This report on our organization.
Thank you.
Leo, you want to advance? Do you want to advance slides for me? Oh, sure. I'm supposed to be here.
Didn't know you were going to be here for that, did you?
Okay, we're ready to advance,
Just the down arrow when I give you the signal.
when you give me the signal.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, I think I'll just tell you, yeah. Well, first of all, I want to thank you all again for your patience. My name is Elizabeth Zelaya. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives at Hudson River Housing. And Supervisor Perotti just asked me to come this evening to just give a little bit of an overview of our organization to folks who aren't familiar with our work. We have been working with residents and other stakeholders in the area to form what we're calling the Tri-Town Coalition, and so we want to be able to share a little bit more about what that is and answer any questions that you might have. So I wanted to start with just a basic overview of our organization. We are a not-for-profit. Our mission statement is here on the screen. Our mission is to provide a continuum of services that improve lives and communities through housing with compassion and development with vision. We create pathways out of homelessness through empowerment, education, and advocacy, and also work to strengthen communities through affordable housing and by creating opportunities for people and places to thrive. So that is the driving force of our work. We've been around for 37 years. We have a staff of over 140 people, so we are quite a large nonprofit organization in the area. We have worked throughout Dutchess County since our inception. We even extend a bit beyond the county. We have a project in Orange County, and we've had conversations with folks in Columbia County about needs that they have in that area. So we really do consider ourselves a regional organization. Okay, next slide, thank you. Oh no, unfortunately, you're only seeing part of this slide. But what I wanted to point out here, and actually this is from our brand new website, which just launched maybe 2 weeks ago. So if you're interested in kind of digging deeper, I do encourage you to go to hudsonriverhousing.org and check out more about us. But what I want to point out here is sort of the breadth of the work that we do. Because although we oftentimes have a very housing centric focus, we do work in a variety of areas, and really what drives us is anything that communities or people that live in communities need to thrive and be strong. So we do emergency and affordable housing. That's a core part of our mission. We also have a home ownership center, which is a full service center that provides education for people who are interested in becoming homeowners. We do one-on-one counseling. We do group trainings. We have a course on financial literacy that we teach to youth as well as adults. And we can bring those trainings out into different communities across the Hudson Valley. The Homeownership Center also has trained foreclosure prevention counselors, so we work with folks in that area as well. We do specialized support services. In particular, I want to point out the work that we do with veterans. We have some specialized housing for veterans, and we also have veteran care managers. And those are folks who are often veterans themselves and have a great deal of experience navigating the VA system or other supports for veterans, and are able to link individuals and their families to some of those resources. We also have specialized programs for youth. So we do have a shelter and crisis center for youth. We also do care management for youth who are living independently in the community. Those are often individuals who are over 18, so they might not qualify for other benefits, but they are still in need of some support system, and we offer that to them. Strengthening communities, we have a community building and engagement department. We do resident leadership trainings. And we do real estate development and property management. So we have a large portfolio of housing that we own and manage, and we act as real estate developers working in concert with communities and community members to identify properties for development and undertake that development in partnership with local contractors. And lastly, economic development. We run workforce development training programs. We also have a few of our own social enterprises, which are businesses that we run. We use them as a way to employ people in the community and also to activate oftentimes vacant spaces in neighborhoods and downtown areas. So that's an overview of what we do. Let's go to the next slide. So just to give you a sense of some of our work across the Hudson Valley, as I mentioned, we've been in business a long time. This is specifically looking at what we've done in terms of real estate development over that time. Over 1,000 apartments and homes. So we do rental housing. We also build single-family homes for first-time home buyers and sell those to individual households at subsidized prices. And we've also done 79 commercial spaces. So quite a lot of investment in the commercial retail front as well. And altogether, that means we've brought in over $136 million in funds to Dutchess County communities, primarily over our history. Those are resources that we are able to access through county, state, federal government, as well as private investors, and donors who support the mission of our organization. Also want to point out that over 50% of our work has been outside Poughkeepsie. Folks who are familiar with our organization may know that our headquarters are in Poughkeepsie. Certainly we do have a lot going on in the Poughkeepsie area, but I think it's also important to know that we work throughout the region, as I said earlier, and as you can see here, over 50% of our housing is actually outside of the city. In the pictures here, you can see just a few examples of some of the projects that we've done in Red Hook, in Millerton, in Orange County, Town of Poughkeepsie, and Fishkill, I believe, are the projects that are represented here. Next slide, please. So I did just want to point out some of the economic development work that we do, because again, I think it is a strength of our organization and something that folks maybe are less familiar with. And so this is a picture of a historic factory building that we renovated. This is in downtown Poughkeepsie. This was vacant property, sat empty for several decades, was on the brink of being torn down, had actually gone into a foreclosure process, and at the time was completely empty, gutted inside. We were able to acquire this building, and working together with the surrounding neighborhood and partners, develop a revitalization plan for this property, where it's now a combination of commercial space and residential space. There's 15 apartments here. They're mixed income apartments, so some are market rate and some are deemed affordable, and I can talk a little bit more about what that means. But we also have a coffee house and cafe that we run in this space, as well as a shared use commercial kitchen, which is an enterprise that we rent out to small food entrepreneurs. We have over 30 food businesses, all very small, locally grown food businesses that come in and they use this space as a way to launch and grow their business. This is just an example of some of the other types of ways that we can support the goals and growth of a community. Next slide. So the Northeastern Dutchess Tri-Town Coalition is really what brings me here this evening. So as you can see, we have a deep investment in Dutchess County and in this region. All of our senior leadership are folks who are born and raised in the county. So this is our home and always has been. And so we have heard from people in the area that there is a need for greater continuum of housing options in the community. When we think about the ways we want to see our community grow and thrive in the future, we hear frequently about opportunities for young people to stay in the area. How do we retain our youth? How do we attract young professionals and families? And so we need to think about the way that housing is part of that whole structure and system. And so we have, over the past couple years, held several community meetings. We had a few in Amenia here in this building. We're also focusing on Millerton, Northeast, and Pine Plains. And so we've sort of circled around throughout those three communities. We've done some resident leadership training. We've worked with youth in the Weebatuck School District, and we've also done some surveying of business owners and farms in the area to understand what kinds of challenges that they have. And so, this work has been kind of organic over the past few years. And in April, we were able to hold a one-day housing conference in Millerton. We had over 100 people attend that event. And what we wanted to do there was really talk about what housing means, what affordable housing means, and provide some examples of how it can be integrated into a community and help support other priorities that your town may have. And so out of that conference day has come what we're calling the Tri-Town Coalition, which is an assembly of people who are interested in this topic. We have residents, we have folks who are part of government, we have business owners, and we have other nonprofits, and essentially all these people are really just interested in staying part of this conversation and where they can supporting inclusive and equitable growth for this region. I think I have one more slide, which is just the directional statement that this coalition has built. We've had just 2 meetings so far, so it's in its very early stages, and it is open to all participants, and what we are at this point saying is that we want to advocate for and undertake direct action to secure an equitable and sustainable future for the Tri-Town region that ensures a continuum of accessible housing options exists for all current and future residents. So that's the work that we're undertaking. It's broad, it's complex, it's interesting and exciting. Leo Blackman is a resident, and I know a familiar face to all of you. He has been a participant in the coalition and is joining me here tonight just to offer his experience of what the coalition has been like and what he hopes it can accomplish, in particular for Amenia.
But if there are questions for you.
If there are questions for me first, sure, we can do any questions.
I'd like to ask just how would you conceptualize the difference for your organization between rural solutions and urban solutions, or applications, better say applications? How would you apply your mission differently to rural and to urban settings?
Yeah, I don't think our mission changes, but I think there are similarities and distinctions. And I think that when we talk about housing affordability, what we mean is, and it is something that applies to any income level, and it really just means that you are paying a reasonable amount of your income on your housing costs. So whether you make $1,000 a month or $10,000 a month, obviously the impact is very different for the person who's on the lower end of that spectrum, but it's important to sort of understand what housing affordability means, and that really is that you're paying typically no more than 35% of your income on your housing costs, and that's something that we think should be standard for everybody. It's more attainable for people at higher income levels, which is why we often need to create supports for folks at lower income levels to be able to achieve that. And in terms of so that's the piece that kind of stays the same. And I think what's different is really that we take a very thoughtful approach to any work that we do in a community. We work very closely with the people who are in local government, the residents, and in terms of site selection, design, numbers, unit numbers, even what types of funding sources might be involved, because those funding sources come with different types of income criteria. And so all of that would come into play and is very thoughtfully done based on the context of the community and what the need is that we're hoping to meet in that community.
I think we need a more of a clarification of your role as it comes to identifying possible affordable housing places that would be invested in. Is it something that Hudson, that you would do and then eventually manage it, or I think people need to have more information about that.
Sure. Well, I would say most often opportunities are presented to us, and so then we sort of vet them and do a feasibility study to understand whether those are viable opportunities. But most often it's folks approaching us with an interest in bringing affordable housing into their community. Could be from government, it could also be from a private owner or developer that is interested in having affordable housing be part of their project. And so that's generally how we take on projects, unless we're not really kind of going sort of around and just kind of acquiring all properties. We really try to work in concert with people in the community that have an interest.
And what would the process be once a place was identified?
Yeah, so putting together a scope of what that would look like. So is it home ownership? Is it rental? Is it some combination? Is it commercial and residential? And so figuring out what that project type looks like, and then that helps us understand what the financing options are. We use traditional bank financing, we use grant funding, we work with investors at times, and so that would be the next step, is kind of outlining what the financing plan would be and submitting those applications, and that usually happens concurrently with a local approvals process. And then generally, home ownership projects, of course, are things that are developed and then sold, and we bring households into our home ownership center to give them the education that they need to be able to move into properties, and we work with banks to help those folks get mortgages. And then rental properties stay in our portfolio. We have a property management department, we have a maintenance department, and so we do our own property management and have, as you saw, over 1,000 units developed. We have about 600 now in our portfolio that we actively manage on a day-to-day basis. So we have a tremendous depth of experience in that.
So, in the whole master planning process, we dealt with some, on the whole master plan process in, 2000, 2007, it dealt with affordable housing, and we did studies. Now, those are dated, but I remember Ann Saylor coming and giving us statistics, hard numbers that were our community specifically. And we brought in experts to help us understand where our weaknesses was. And I remember one particular, it could have been from Dutchess County Planning and Development. I remember Ann Saylor in particular being very helpful in helping us understand the need in Amenia.
And she was at the meeting last night, by the way.
She's excellent, and I assume she's still a good resource for us if we need
Absolutely.
to plow into some statistics. Because I've had questions such as how much currently exists in Amenia, that's Section 8 housing, how much is, deemed, affordable for a typical, for our, median household income. And I don't know those numbers because that was old and dated, but we need to get that
Right.
maybe in front of us again.
Right, okay.
And be able to answer to our community what is the need. And then the other thing that I do remember them saying is that we have and I think anecdotally, we all know there is affordable housing in Amenia, but a lot of it, but the problem is that it's aged housing, it's maybe not up to par for today's, for human standards. I mean, there's housing that clearly needs to, we have a lot of, what do you call those, absentee landlords who are obviously not putting the money back into these places. So I think whatever we can do to help shore up the problems, what I see in Amenia, and that's just me speaking, is that we need to shore up the existing structures and maybe do more infill, but the big problem is the lack of sewer systems. So the reason why a lot of these apartments that are over the downtown retail space don't get fixed up is because they can't meet the current building codes. So any improvements they make are going to be very expensive because they've got to put in, now they have to make all bring the building up to code, right? So those are, to me, the biggest issue was that our comprehensive plan showed a lot of community support for improving the downtown areas in both Wassaic and Amenia. There is a lot of substandard housing that can be brought up to standard and be made to be very affordable because you can theoretically walk to certain services, whereas in most rural areas like ours, you've got to have a car, which means now you're talking about quite a lot of their money is going towards a car. So what I would say to you guys is that I think the hamlet centers of both Amenia and Wassaic both would be good places to start. And that Main Street grant, we did get some money to improve the facades and paint some of the exterior structures of the historic buildings in downtown Amenia. There were landowners who were very interested in being a part of that program, and I would say if you wanted to help us reapply yet again for the downtown, that makes a very good case. There are private landowners who can then take the benefit of this rare grant opportunity, which pays for improvements to a private entity that meets that criteria. So I think that's where I would start steering my efforts if I were involved in that.
Yeah, Hudson River Housing has managed, I think, 9 or so Main Street grants at this point, so it's a grant that we're very familiar with, and we did apply in conjunction with Amenia a few years ago, and we were not awarded that grant in that round, but certainly something that we're open to do again.
We're applying again this year.
Yeah, so, if there's a role for us, because there are resources out there, not all housing has to be new construction. It can be infill, it can be rehab, it can be upper stories. There are resources out there for that. We are very close to being awarded another opportunity that would allow us to work with private owners to help them access state funding that is available to private developers and property owners, and that would allow them to bring in those resources to do the type of work that you're describing, and so that hopefully will be rolling out very soon over the summer. So there certainly are lots of things that we can do, and I think that's probably an important message here for me to kind of conclude with, is that there's a broad spectrum of opportunities and strategies that can be applied, and it's not a one-size-fits-all, and it's not something that we ever look at that way. And so really it's a matter of collecting the data. We do have some updated numbers we can share, and kind of understanding where to start and what works best for any given community. Did you have something?
Yeah, I'll be brief, but just wanted to relate my experience on the Tri-Town Coalition. Victoria was actually at the first meeting. The meeting, there was 100 and some people. And I actually, Vicki, happened to hold on to the Amenia.
Oh, super.
And basically, it breaks down renters, owners, and combined, but basically a third of the renters and owners in Amenia are either in a situation where the amount they're paying is unaffordable or severely unaffordable. So unaffordable means they're paying more than a third of their income for housing, and severely means that they're paying more than half of their income just for housing. So, I mean, that's an indication of the need, and I know Victoria has spoken to Sila, when I spoke to the people at Troutbeck and various other business owners, and people in Millerton have as well, and have gotten a very clear message that when they try to attract people to work at their businesses, that there's not any place they can afford to live in the area. There are a lot of buildings that that I drive by that I would think, well, that's got to be affordable housing because it's apartments and whatever, but a lot of those are very badly maintained. Victoria, you asked about properties. I actually drove around and took pictures of properties that were for sale and sent that over, I think, yesterday or the day before. One that was sort of obvious is in Wassaic. There's that white mill housing building, which was built as multifamily units, and I don't think it's in particularly good shape on the inside, and that seemed like an obvious candidate. The people from Millerton and Pine Plains were very much of one mind in terms of what's needed. I mean, we're not talking about building a 30-unit project. What we're talking about is renovating existing buildings or building new 1 or 2 family buildings within the hamlet centers. That was really important to all of us because we felt that Millerton is a little, busier than we are, and Pine Plains, a teeny bit maybe, but obviously we need more people in the center of town in order to support businesses, in order to get something more than antique shops in downtown Amenia. So I see this as a huge opportunity to both get help renovating and improving the condition of existing buildings, like the ones, the upstairs of the three-story buildings along the main street, and I sent pictures of that too. You know, some of the big old houses that are for sale that could be, you know, maybe 2 or 3 units, but basically to keep the look of the town centers the same, but just try to get more people into them. And I think that's a really important effort for us. I was a preservation architect and I'm retired for like a month now, so this is something that I've gotten very excited about. There was something else which escapes me at the moment, but in any event, I think it's a really good opportunity. Oh, I know what the other piece was. The other piece is the sewer. All 3 towns lack a sewer system, and all 3 towns have exactly the same problems, even Millerton, in terms of not being able to have new restaurants open. In Pine Plains, they showed us a restaurant that was allowed to have 12 seats, I believe, because, and it's not enough for the people to earn a living, but that was as big as they could have for, based on the sewer that exists. So all 3 towns are looking at that. Victoria, I know, has identified some potential funding. What I was going to suggest to you all is that I think it's time to re-up the Affordable Housing Committee and the Sewer Committee, and maybe that could even be combined into one. But I think that there should be a group of citizens who are interested in this and are working on this at this point, because the Tri-Town Coalition is helpful to identify sources of money and to get the attention of county, state, and federal elected officials in terms of getting funding. But the point of this has been to really tailor these interventions to what's specifically needed in each town. And all of us have said that we feel that the sewer is really important to make it possible to increase the number of units, as you said, like above the stores. And it was good to hear that you do residential above commercial, that you do commercial too, because I think, again, not everything is filled at the moment, but if there were more people in town, then they might be fairly quickly. So again, I just think we have an opportunity here to really kind of improve things that people have been complaining about in Amenia for decades. So I'm excited to be involved with that. And I hope that, I don't know, Victoria, if there's an official process for the board to give their support to this or to sign on to this, but I think it would be great to have that. And Victoria has said that she would try to attend future meetings. I mean, someone else from the board is more than welcome. I know that...
Well, I've offered to have one here.
Right, and there is going to be one. The next meeting, because they've been rotating, the next meeting, which is July 8th, is going to be in Amenia. So if you all want to experience that, you're more than welcome.
We might be looking at a couple of new dates.
Oh, okay.
Mark your calendars, yeah, but it will be here.
Okay. I just think it's a really positive program and is potentially of great benefit to the town, and might be our sort of, you know, best hope for getting some of this stuff again that we've wanted for a long time. So thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions or comments?
No, just to note that we do have an affordable housing committee which is currently empty. So if there are any folks out there that would like to volunteer.
There are people on it.
They don't live in, the 3 people that are on it don't live in town anymore.
Well, they haven't met in a long time, so, okay. Yeah, it would be good to have some new people, new interests.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any public comment? Okay, supervisors report. Wassaic Trail to the Train update. Bid results have been reviewed and approved by DOT. Pre-construction meeting has been scheduled. Town of Amenia Highway Garage land update, looking at proposals to apply for grants for a salt shed and highway garage. Noise law update under review by town board. Dutchess County Procurement Shared Services, RFPs for new email and engineering services for CDBG sidewalk grant and process. Regional Ambulance Grant. Northern Dutchess Paramedic, the only provider to respond to the RFP. Towns will be meeting to decide the next plan of action after discussion with each of their town attorneys. Welsh Sanitation Service Amendment information for residents who use the Amenia site transfer station or on Channel 22 AmeniaNY.gov website, on the town hall doors and in each town hall department. Grant update, grant writer and supervisor discussing regarding possible grants to apply for in the consolidated funding application due at the end of July. I'd like to read the Welsh Sanitation Service contract amendment that we have posted on the doors and on Channel 22 so that people will have an understanding of the agreement that we came to at Welsh Sanitation when we were having negotiations with them about their abrupt end to our contract. Welsh Sanitation Service will provide 1, residential curbside pickup service for 9 months, free of charge, to all new residential accounts commencing between March 1st, 2019 and June 30th, 2019. To arrange curbside service, call 845-877-9354. Any resident commencing residential curbside pickup between the above months must have a pickup location located within the boundaries of the town of Amenia. The 9-month free curbside service will apply to any service level, 35-gallon, 65-gallon, or 95-gallon, for weekly trash and recyclable pickup, along with the use of 2 automated collection carts, one for trash and the other for recycling for each location. At the conclusion of the 9-month period, the residents will have the opportunity to terminate service without further obligation to Welsh Sanitation or to continue services at Welsh Sanitation's regular rates. For those Town of Amenia residents who wish to continue use of the drop-off service, Welsh Sanitation will make available the Harlem Valley Transfer Station located at 1933 Route 22, Wingdale, New York, to any Town of Amenia resident at the current Town of Amenia price schedule. Any Town of Amenia residents who wish to make use of the drop-off service at Harlem Valley Transfer Station must present valid identification exhibiting a valid Town of Amenia address. A driver's license or passport is an acceptable form of identification. Harlem Valley Transfer Station hours of operation, excluding recognized federal holidays, shall be Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., Saturday from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. So if you were using the Amenia site for Welsh Sanitation, and after it abruptly closed, this is what you have available to you. Town Clerk report.
Good evening. The minutes of May 16th and the special meeting of May 30th have been circulated prior to the meeting. Has the board had the opportunity to read those via email?
I will.
Yes.
Are you ready to move on those?
Yes.
I can't make the motion. I could just look up and see who does.
I'll move that we approve the minutes.
Thanks, Jim.
We'll do them separately, so.
Separately, though.
Separately,
Starting
May
with
May 16th.
2019.
Second.
Damian.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
And May 30th.
Make a motion that we
Joanne?
approve the May 30th, 2019 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The monthly share for May, total shares were 836, of which $811.75 has been remitted to the town supervisor. Since January of this year, total taxes collected, $4,967,428.38. inclusive of $10,756.38 for penalty and $80 in notices. As tax collection is concluded in regarding to accepting it in the office, I still am receiving it in the mail, so the numbers may change by our next meeting. But as of today, 84 remaining parcels, or a total of uncollected taxes was $342,242.24. So as a whole, tax collection went very well for the town. As we know, and we announced last meeting, that we advertised for our summer camp staff. Kathleen Howard has provided to me the list of summer camp staff for the year 2019, and she has recommended the hiring of Jessica McRoberts at $15 an hour, Jeannie Selfridge at $12 an hour, Raquel Singleton, $12 an hour, Cassidy Watt, $10.50, Samantha Wolf, $10.50, Zachary Kligner, $10.50, Hannah Lounsbury, $10.50, Ethan Lounsbury, $10.50, William Liam Murphy, $10.50, Catherine Kate Louie, $10.50, Justin Calabrese, $10.50, Kayla Taylor, $10.50. The position of the EMT is still open. We're still accepting applications for that part of the summer camp. So she's asked if I can just report that at the next meeting. She's going to speak with Department of Health and see what we can do in regards to filling that.
So we need to make a motion to
accept
hire?
the kids, the summer camp staff as read.
They make a motion that we hire the summer staff list as read by the town clerk.
Second.
Councilwoman Samoji?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
And Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
In your packets this evening, you're going to find the invitation for the annual Field Day Southern Berkshire Amateur Radio Club. AJ came in and dropped that annual invitation off, and he's asking and cordially inviting all to stop by his house at 80 Depot Hill Road. It's where the ham radio operators will be setting up radio stations and making contact with others, and they show us and have on display how emergency communications and capabilities are done. So that is a local event. We also had, in your packet, there's a letter that I received from one of our residents expressing some concern on the high rate of speed that she's been observing on Route 44 west of the traffic light. This is a letter that she did send to New York State DOT in Poughkeepsie, but she wanted to also share the letter with you, and if you, as a board, wanted to discuss and perhaps also send a letter of support. She currently is just looking to bring it to their attention, and if they would be willing to possibly add in a painted crosswalk in the area and some signage for children at play. I did explain to her that it is a state road and that it's not a immediate board action, but she wanted to bring it to the board's attention. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here this evening, so if that's something the board would discuss. And the last item I have on my agenda this evening is I wanted to just bring up an administrative correction for the year of 2019. At our January 3rd, 2019 reorganizational meeting, we appointed John Terry Metcalf, and unfortunately he wasn't here that day, so he wasn't able to be sworn in that month. And at this time I'm seeking the board's approval to go ahead and just reappoint Terry, and then I can swear him in this evening. And it's for the position as chair of the ZBA. He is a full-fledged member for our ZBA. We're just looking for the chair title.
May I make a motion that we appoint John Terry Metcalf, Chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, effective immediately?
Thank you.
Second.
Michelle? Michelle? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And with that said, can I just take a quick moment? Terry is here.
Yes, well, we can give him the oath of office and...
Terry, just stand up. Not embarrassing you as the sole person. Mr. Metcalf, do you solemnly swear that you support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of New York, and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Chairman for the zoning board of appeals?
I do.
Okay, welcome back. Please so kind just to sign this, and then you're all set.
Okay.
You are now. Just sign that for us. Yes, and enjoy your trip.
Thank you.
And you can your pen. And I think they wanted it in purple. And that'll conclude the town clerk's report.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, building report. For May, the building department issued 13 new building permits totaling $14,426.50. And they, with certificate of occupancy searches, there were 9 searches, totaled $1,225, 2 fire inspections of $100, along with 1 abandonment property registration of $1,000, and 2 renewals of $350, bringing the total for the month to be $17,101.50. Are there any committee reports?
Well, the only thing I have is that the Amenia Seniors Picnic will be at the last Saturday in July, and the flyers are out, and it's going to be on the TV. And I already have folks calling us, so it's going to be a good time, and the theme is Celebrate the Red, White, and Blue, so we'll have a good time there. And our next trip is to Lake George in August, so that's it there.
Okay, and are there any other committee reports? No?
I think that our next CAC meeting is the 3rd Wednesday, but I haven't had that confirmed. So it is typically the 3rd Thursday at 7 o'clock here at the town hall.
Okay, if there are no other committee reports, I'd like to poll the board individually regarding the 2 candidates that we had for planner, since we did do interviews to get everybody's feeling.
Right.
Michelle, you want to start?
I like the second group of planners, and I think they're the
KRF?
KRF people. I like them very much because they were very organized, and I understood everything they were saying, because they showed all these spreadsheets so I could look at it and understand what they were saying, how they were planning it, and how they were doing it. And so I like them very much, because I always like it when people spell it out for me.
AKRF got high marks from me as well. My only concern about them, and I realize we have a track record, the town has a track record with them. They prepared the comprehensive plan for the town, I believe, and I think they did a good job on that. My only concern with them is the price. Their hourly rate is quite a bit higher. The other company I also rated high, and that's really my only concern. I think probably both would be capable of doing a good job.
Well, there was a difference in travel policy as well between the two.
Yes, there
correct?
is.
And
AKRF charges travel time, the other company does not. So it's not only the hourly rate, but it's the travel time as well.
Just so people are aware, the 2 finalists for planners were Nelson Pope and Voorhees and AKRF.
Right.
AKRF, Nelson Pope and Voorhees, Voorhis. Those were the 2 finalists that we interviewed. Is that all you had to say, Jim? Or?
Yeah, that's my only concern is the difference in the price. I think they're both capable.
Is the price negotiable?
No.
No, it's the firm thing, okay.
Damien?
I had the same concern, Price, specifically around travel, because AKRF's office was, I think we looked this up, about, I don't remember, I looked this up and I sent an email around to the town board. It was about an hour and a quarter away. Trying to find that email. So yeah, I had a similar concern. I did think, I was impressed with both presentations and primarily concerned with the travel policy.
Vicki?
Oh, sorry. So I'm very, I thought I scored AKRF the highest of my, on all the categories. They've worked with us, they know our laws, which are not, will take somebody else quite a bit of time to bring themselves up to speed. So the cost of them coming up to speed, we did negotiate that with a lawyer who came on to do our planning, and they recognized the cost of bringing themselves up to speed and becoming familiar with the references, the overlays, the way it's structured is not as simple as other plans. So I think that AKRF, being familiar with it, will be able to be available by phone consultation. If you look at the way, we haven't actually used our planner that much, first of all. So having that bedrock foundation understanding will make them, I think, more capable of handling a question from the building inspector who may say, look, I need some help understanding what the RA district allows and doesn't allow, such as the Savarese project. And they can go straight to the heart of the issue, remember and recall the whole process, because AKR was very involved, particularly towards the end of our whole process. So I think they bring to the table a quality that belies their hourly rate, that will make even out those differences. I don't see them coming to the town of Amenia very often unless the planning board and the ZBA are going to start using them in a different manner than they have been. We hired good planning lawyers who have extremely good credentials in land use planning. That's Dave Everett's firm. That group has been answering every manner of question, and we have not been using our planner. Now, if we start going into high gear, creating a new comprehensive plan, doing a revision, and eating up a lot of hourly rates, maybe we would start saying, oh my gosh, but I think their ability to pick up the phone and answer some questions in a very straightforward, helpful manner is going to be very much more efficient than somebody going off the, not familiar with our community, living across, the county from us.
They did say, I'm sorry to interject, but they did say, AKRF did say that for a large project like a revisit,
plan, yeah.
they would come up with a project fee as opposed to billing hourly.
They could do it in parts. And the reality is that comprehensive plan revision is capable, we're capable of getting grants. I personally worked on 5 grants and got $70,000 along with Mike Haggerty. We worked both. And so there is money out there for that kind of thing, where a planner of high quality is going to be, and somebody with the track record with us, I think more efficient, and they're by far I think the best out there, but that's probably just my opinion. Should I make a motion?
Well,
Are you
Victoria,
guys all ready, or
did you
Victoria
have a-
needs to
No.
weigh in?
No, I didn't want to weigh in. I just wanted to get the feeling of the board. Go ahead.
Well, we had a resolution, I believe, prepared.
My
So-
problem, though, Vicki, is that we don't really know what the planning board is going to do.
No, we don't.
And That's why I'm reluctant to go for these people, because the difference is pretty significant.
Yeah, but we have not, the planning board has not utilized Mary Ann's services for probably 5 years. The composition of that board is 7 years. We hired the best planning lawyer firm that we could, because we had a lot of complicated issues. What we need is a planning consultant who understands the depth of this law and can be a consultant, basically, when it comes down to questions like the Savarese issue, or whether, why it was that we did not allow, what do you call that, composting and that kind of thing in the town of Amenia. Why is that? You go back to the comp plan, you read it, and you realize, we hired Denise Fitzpatrick because and we said to her, you're going to have to learn this whole law, you're going to do it on your own dime, and she agreed to do that. She studied it and came back to the board ready to roll. But it's not an insignificant task to get yourself up to speed and understand it through and through.
I mean, this other firm seems to be pretty well experienced as well.
Yeah, I would not have an issue with them.
Do you have any track record with them? Does the town have any track record at all with them?
I don't think so.
No. No, we don't.
And the other thing is AKRF works with Dover. They are their planners. So Dover and Amenia share an aquifer overlay laws that were done in concert. Well, our laws match what's happening in this particular Harlem Valley. It helps us to have somebody who understands our particular issues, because they are an important decision for how the town is doing its land use decisions. Just like tonight, they said, green infrastructure, it's going to, some of those grants are based on aquifer, where it is, and the CAC does the best it can, but we need people who understand the law, who understand why these laws were the way they are, and this community in particular, and what it feels is the most important. Not some planner's idea of what's important, but what the town of Amenia residents have expressed and believe is critical to its particular community. So planners trained, yes, planners are trained. They understand the concepts and and the secret process and all of that. But I think what's different about a planner, a good planner, is that they understand your community really well.
Well, I assume they're going to be presenting us with a contract if we
Yes.
go ahead.
Oh, we always do, yeah.
I would be interested in what the termination provisions would be. If we find out that they are billing us an awful lot of money and maybe make work as opposed to things that they're really requested to do, I'd want to be able to terminate that agreement very quickly. So on that basis, I would go along with your motion.
Resolution number?
36.
Employing planning consultant services, be it resolved that
And all you gotta do is say the name of the company.
AKRF, right?
Yeah.
Of White Plains, New York, I assume. Is there?
You don't even have to, it was just if we were naming a particular person, a specific,
Oh.
so you can just say the name of the company. So you've said it.
So that we hire AKRF
Comma,
as
is-
our,
Is
to
hereby
be employed and retained for the purposes of furnishing to the town board and the town's departments and agencies professional planning, consulting advice, and services as may be required from time to time during calendar year 2019. And be it further resolved that AKRF shall be paid for such services in accordance with the fee schedule set forth in the proposal submitted to the town board, dated, looks like it is,
It's not in the packet provided, but we can fill that, yes.
Is this number 36?
I can just fill that in. The date, we don't have the date that their original
we just
ones.
say submitted at the last town board
as
meeting.
submitted, yeah.
As submitted to the town board shall be paid, and And be it further resolved that the town supervisor is hereby authorized to execute an engagement agreement with AKRF with the condition that an acceptable termination agreement be included in the contract. Is that the right wording for that?
I think that's fine, sufficient.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Councilman Morris?
Yes.
And Councilwoman Smiladri.
Yes.
Is there any other public comment?
Sharon Kroger here.
Take your
Now
time,
that you've-
Sharon, you're all there is.
Now that you've finished all the hard work
Okay.
without any of us butting in, although it's
Put it-
difficult
put it
sometimes,
in so they could look at
I
it.
want to tell you a funny story.
We're not doing anything with it tonight.
Back in the 1980s, before some of us knew what planning was, there were meetings in the old town hall, and there would be the various types of discussions that you can imagine. And there was a planning outfit that had been, long before you got here, Vicki, there was an outfit that was trying to get hired to be the planners, and this was before the master plan of 1990. So it was a particular time when the town was challenged to do some of this. And the planners came with a kind of boilerplate example of what they do. And when they explained it, I mean, you could see the map of Amenia, but they didn't have the topological map. They didn't see those mountains and those ravines and the rivers and all of the real challenges of Amenia. And I was sitting there trying to understand this. I was new at that. It wasn't anything I had training about in those days. And as I listened to them, I became more and more incredulous, because what they were trying to do was to apply a regular town situation where you have the town in the middle and the roads are going out into the rural areas, like most towns. They were trying to apply it to Amenia. And it was like, all of a sudden, it dawned on me and a few others, we don't have that. We have a donut. We have 6 separate hamlets around a mountain, and they're all separate from each other. And in olden days, there were 5 or 6 post offices. So we start with something totally different than most places. And you need planners that have the awareness and the sensitivity to really understand the difference. So thanks for your hard work on that.
Thank you.
Any town board comments?
I just want to make one comment about the yellow roses that you might see. The yellow roses represent that it's 100 years that the women in the United States of America have the right to vote. So it's 100 years this week, this year. 19th Amendment, that's us, and the yellow roses symbolize that. So, ladies, if you're not registered to vote, please get out there and do it and vote. We don't care who you vote for, just vote, because my grandmother was 18 years old when this law was passed, and my mother was born 2 years or 3 years later after that. So, and here we are today. So a lot of ladies came before us so that we, who are ladies sitting here, could sit here. So please get out and vote and register. Our elections are coming up. Thank you so much for your time.
I would just like to mention that this Saturday is the Strawberry Festival at the Four Brothers parking lot from 10 to 2, and also the Amenia Library Book and Bake Sale. So come out, get some books, buy some baked goods, and support all the organizations, because the Strawberry Festival is put on by the Harlem Valley Chamber of Commerce.
So are you making your cherry pie this year?
Yes, I am.
It's already sold.
Okay.
Gotta make two.
Vicki, do you have anything? I wanted to thank the Highway Department for heading out to Wassaic Park and cleaning that up. I know there's been a lot of discussion. We received some comments, not from my wife for a change of pace, but from some other Wassaic residents. And while there's been various discussion on this topic over the course of the last couple of months, you know, I did want to take responsibility for not coming up with some idea or solution or some way to better the state of that park. And so I'd be happy to work on that with whomever else on the board would like to tackle that with me. But I know there's certain things in progress, but it does have an air of being ignored down there a bit. And so I'm glad it was.
Just so everybody knows what's in progress, the Highway Department and the maintenance crew from Recreation are going to be working together to remove all the old playground equipment that's down there that isn't ADA compliant. And where the town board is, we're getting a proposal from Parkitect for 2 replacement pieces, one for the older children and one for the toddlers. The other thing the Highway Department will be doing is taking down the backstop, which is almost falling down and could harm someone, in back of where people have played ball. So we're looking at making some safety improvements and overall improvements for the park. So just so everybody knows what's currently being planned.
Well, I just have a question. I got a thing there about the tournament, that if we individuals wish to make a donation towards the tournament.
Yes, the John Lamb tournament.
The John Lamb tournament?
It's next weekend.
Okay, do we give this to Marge?
No, you can give it to Dawn.
I give it to Dawn. Okay, I just, okay.
You can bring it in and I'll make sure it gets to the correct person who's accepting the donations at this time.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, the
Show
John
me the
Lamb
money.
tournament is not this weekend, but next weekend, next Saturday.
Well,
I do also have a number of comments on the solar law, which I guess I'll save until the next meeting.
That's when the
If
public
that's-
hearing will be.
yeah, because we want to go for burgers, so.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. So I'll save those for next meeting, and that's it.
Just say I was really surprised at our mortgage tax payment, and it was very robust compared to any of the time I've been on the board. I'll say that the Wassaic Park definitely needs to be addressed, and the entrance of that park has a little historic signs and park bench that is going to be taken away by the Highway Department as well, and the dead plants under the
Yeah, this is the other
trees.
park.
Yeah, it's called Borden Park is
Borden
what
Park.
we call it. So I'm
Two
looking
parks.
forward to seeing that facelift as well, because that's very visible from the road and the hamlet residents. The 10 Mile River Collaborative is going to be meeting on Thursday, June 20th at 6 p.m., location yet to be determined. The mapping for local conservation planning will be at the Farm and Home Center on Saturday. I plan to attend and have to race to the Strawberry Festival, I guess, from the last bit of it. So that's from 9 to 12 at the Farm and Home Center. Hazardous waste disposal, I noticed, was available again on Saturday, June 22nd at the Dutchess County Department of Public Works. And you can register online or call 463-6020 and pay the $10 registration fee. And
Yeah, we're
that's-
doing we're doing the municipal one. because we have a lot of fluorescent lights, and we have gallons of things, so we've already,
You're planning to make
we've
a
already,
trip?
yeah, we already did the application and sent them the list of everything we're bringing.
Good. Yep. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any
Thank you
other
for the
town board
roses.
comment? Jim?
Time for the adjournment? I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Time we got
Is that?
8:27.